Good evening. I'm always hoping that you had the best day ever. It's not quite gone yet. It's just a little dark. So you still have this day. So there's still the opportunity to forgive yourself and to forgive everybody else. Can't change a thing that has been done in the past, but you can change the moment. And I'm looking forward to tonight because Dr. Tammie Moore is returning to us. This is her third time with us, and it was just overwhelming, the responses that I've gotten and that we've gotten, and just for myself personally. I woke up this morning, and I've been anxious all day today, and I just cannot put my finger on what it is. But I've just been anxious all day today, and when I'm sitting, I just say relax, and I can make myself relax. And I have those days like that. It's not the first time I've had one, so I don't know what's going on. I just know that today I had an opportunity to be alive, communicate, and to just enjoy the day. And I told myself, I'm not going to worry about where this anxiety is coming from today. I'm just going to be. And there was a time I would get more anxiety wondering where the anxiety was coming from. Now it's just part of life. Text some old friends, some former members here, and just checked on them. And it's just been the kind of day that I'm just enjoying today, and I hope you are enjoying it too. Again, Dr. Tammie Moore has been so special to us, and we're just excited. And the last time she was here, she shared with us her mental health one-on-one, and then she would do part 2 of that particular series. So we're going to pray, and then our next voice you'll hear with Dr. Tammie Moore. Father, we just invite you into our lives. We invite you to take our lives. Although we're going to fight with you, we still want you to have them. Even when we think we're turning it over to you, we just want to maintain a little piece of it. But let us give more of ourselves to you, our anxieties, our cares, our hopes, our disappointments, and our joys. And Father God, just give it all to you. Show us how to live and show us how to have life abundantly. And when you touch your servant Tammie Moore tonight, touch her, Father God, and she will have confidence and that she would be free to be who you created her to be for us at this moment in Christ Jesus' name. And amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that. Good evening, everyone. I have to start out with, when I wake in the morning, I do my morning devotion to kind of get myself centered before I start my workday. And this morning it was very interesting. I use the Jesus Calling devotional each day by Sarah Young, in which she writes, this devotional is written in the third person as if Jesus is talking to you directly. So it started out with, as you look at the day before you, you see a twisted, complicated path with branches going off in all directions. You wonder how you can possibly find your way through the maze. Then you remember the one who is with you always, holding you by your right hand. You recall my promise to guide you with my counsel, and you begin to relax. As you look again at the path ahead you, you notice that a peaceful fog has settled over, obscuring your view. You can see only a few steps in front of you, so you turn your attention more fully to me and begin to enjoy my presence. The fog is a protection for you, calling you back into the present moment. Although I inhabit all of the space and time, you can communicate with me only here and now. Someday the fog will no longer be necessary, for you will have learned to keep your focus on me and on the path just ahead of you. So it was very, as they say, apropos when I read that, because I looked at my schedule and it started at 8 o'clock and back to back 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then at 5 o'clock, and I said, oh, today I'm going to South Central Church of God, and I'm excited. I had such a great time the last time. I got just as much out of meeting with you all, and you have a very special pastor. I think I told you about it last time that he was pretty persistent. And Dr. Moore, we want you to come back. And I said, Pastor, they just need to hear me one time. They're going to get tired of seeing me or hearing me. And he said, no, we want to make it, really want to delve into it and have you come. And so before I knew it, I was telling him about how much I feel like, not all ministry is behind the pulpit. And that I feel like when I'm talking to people all day long, trying to keep them from throwing in the towel and giving up, that's also a ministry. So he said, well, Dr. Moore, I'm going to help you with this ministry and have you come out. So I'm so happy to be back here again. And tonight we're going to pick up where we left off last time. And I'm going to, let's try it. Directed me. There we go. For those of you who weren't here the last time, just a little bit about me. I'm a psychologist practicing over 20 plus years in the Triangle. I have a practice in Cary called Western Weight Counseling and Psychological Services. Love what I do. Married to my husband Jeff, 35, almost 36 years, 4 adult children, 4 grandchildren. A lot of hats, and we're going to talk about that tonight when you wear a lot of hats. So I'm going to start out with this first slide. I wrote it correctly, but we always say, how you doing? I put that R in there. I was being a little too really, when we see each other, we say, how you doing? How you doing? And down where I'm from in South Louisiana, we say, how your mom and them? How your mom and them? Who your people? That type of thing. But this question, how you doing? How you doing? I want you to think about that question. Most of us will reply with something like, what do y'all say? I'm good. I'm all right. I'm blessed. How you doing? I'm well. Even when we're feeling, as my young people say, some type of way, even when we're feeling some type of way, we say, oh, I'm making it, holding on, hanging on, right? But usually when people say, how you doing, they kind of just saying hello. They're not really like, you don't really want to know how I'm doing. But how you doing is something that we use to greet each other. But tonight, I want us to take the next 30, 40 minutes and to remind you that when you have some quiet time, some time with just you and God, that's all, nobody else, just you and God, and you're in a quiet space, your bedroom, your prayer closet, your car, even if you're walking, taking a daily walk, I want to encourage you to think about this question a little bit deeper in a more meaningful way. I want you to ask yourself, how am I really doing for real? For real. I don't know if you've ever had, sometimes I will ask folks that question, so how you doing? No, really, how you doing? And tears will start to flow because they haven't tapped into that feeling of how they're doing. So ask yourself, how am I really doing for real? How am I feeling? Last time I showed y'all a little exercise of surrender. Tonight I want to give you another. If anybody's ever had a CT scan or an MRI, it's kind of an imaging where you just lying there. So I'd like for you to just close your eyes for a moment. And if you've got your legs crossed, I want you to uncross them. Just want you to put your feet flat on the floor and maybe have your arms just hang by your side. Just your arms hang by your side. Go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to imagine that if somebody was doing a scan from your head to your toe, just the scan. I want you to check in with your head. Is your head okay? Do you have any headache pain? How about nasal passage? Are you having any nasal feelings? How are you feeling in your shoulders? Any rotator pain? Any tight shoulder, neck? Come on down to your chest. Is your chest tight? Do you feel any heartburn? Do you have any chest pains? Any palpitations? Come on down to your stomach. You know, is your stomach, have you had dinner? I haven't had dinner. I'm a little hungry. So, are you hungry? Is your stomach settled? Come on down. Hips. I don't know if anybody has any hip pain or joint pain, knee pain. Go on down to your ankles, your feet. Are your feet hurting? And you're just sort of scanning your body just to kind of pay attention to what you're feeling. Okay? Open your eyes, and I want you to kind of take that as an activity. All it takes is probably 15 seconds to just stop for a moment. And you all know you've said this passage, you know, be still and know that I am God and be quiet. But if you sit for 10, 15 seconds and just do an imaginary scan and see how you're feeling, just to check in with that. Does my head hurt? Does my feet hurt? Am I nasally? Does my back hurt? Am I hungry? How about your heart? How does your heart feel? Is your heart heavy? I want you to think about how you're doing just in a more meaningful way, okay? What we're going to talk about tonight is how does mental health affect physical health? How does mental health affect physical health? I'm going to start out by just asking you again silently, what are you worried about? What are you worried about? Have you woken up in the middle of the night in the past month with just kind of like, oh, something on your mind? How are things at work? Do you have a tough workplace situation, stress at work, school, the demands of school? How are things in your relationship? Are you struggling with your relationship? Are you irritable? Are you, I said I was married 35 years, and my husband and I, we have a little game we play. We say, no talking. We used to do it with the kids, and we play no talking, like quiet game. So we'll start out, and I'll say, well, no talking. He says, okay, no talking. I'm like, no talking. And we put ourselves in timeout, and we just say no talking. Because it's sometimes everybody I talked to today wanted to talk about a relationship. Dr. Moore, my mother's this. Dr. Moore, my husband's this. Dr. Moore, me and my sister. And this time of year, those relationships, oh my goodness. Next week, I know y'all watch those Hallmark movies, and you're thinking about Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then you get with your family, and you're like, why don't I have one of those Hallmark families, And it's stressful. The week after Thanksgiving, I'm going to hear all about it. How are your finances? Oh, my gosh, the grocery store. The grocery store, you're trying to shop for Thanksgiving, and you're looking like, wait, what? When did these eggs cost $5? So the finances. Are you worried about a loved one? I got a 21-year-old. That's my big baby, and he's in New York City trying to navigate Brooklyn, and he's doing a fellowship, engineering. He was at A&T, and he's in New York. And I'm thinking, this boy, I drove him from Cary to Southeast Raleigh High School for 4 years because he was not interested in driving. And my husband would say, that's because Miss Daisy's driving him every day. But I would drive him from Cary to Southeast Raleigh High School for 4 years. And now he is navigating Brooklyn. Mom, getting on the train. I'll call you back. And I'm just like, oh, Lord, let him be all right. Let him be okay. So are you worried about a loved one? Have you experienced any recent emotionally upsetting events? Last month, I had 2 deaths in the family. My dad lost his last brother. So I went down to Louisiana to be there for him. And then my mom lost one. I was there. All of these questions that I'm asking you can have an impact on your physical health. You may think it's just stuff going on in your head or whatever. But if I were to hook each one of you up to a blood pressure machine and a heart monitor. And I say, just think about one of these questions. Think about your relationship, your work, your finances, your job, whatever. Think about it. Don't say a word. We're not going to talk about it. I just want you to think about it. And I come back about 15 minutes later, all your vitals are going to be up. Your blood pressure, your heart rate, your breathing. So your mind and body are definitely connected. So I am on a mission that I've shared with Pastor Dublin, is that mental health is health. If you all can leave out of here tonight and let everybody in your circle know that we are no longer going to separate mental health and physical health, that this head is connected to the rest of our body, and we can't separate out mental health from physical health. They're all connected. Mind, body, and spirit are all connected. I want to help you tonight. We're going to we talked about the physical health. To identify emotion that is hurting your heart. Instead of, I call it well-meaning Christians. We all can be well-meaning Christians. Soon as we have an upsetting event, we quickly start, no weapon for, and it's wonderful. And I'm so grateful for that. Oh my God, I'm so grateful for that. But we don't even want to take time to even feel it. We don't want to recognize it. We're so quick to dismiss it before we even acknowledge it, that we're hurting. So before you leave out here tonight, I'm going to increase everybody's vocabulary on emotion words, words that I think we didn't learn growing up, because our people told us to maybe go sit down and fix your face. You sad, I'm going to give you something to be sad about, You mad, got a roof over your head and food, and you talking about you mad. You better straighten up. But we're going to go back to class on emotions and learn about those emotion words. I was a good kid. I really didn't need to be popped or spanked or anything. And when I got it, I could just really, all my dad had to say was, Tammie, do you know how much you disappointed me? Oh, Lord, just whip me, just beat me, because those words would hurt me. But we just didn't talk a lot about emotions. It was just like, let's just get it. Let's just move on. So our bodies and minds are not separate. That's what I want you to know. You have to deal with how you feel, because those feelings are inside your body. And, one of the reasons, another reason I want us to learn emotion vocabulary words is because our young folks now, they just say, I feel some type of way. Right? They don't even label it. I feel some type of way. Some people say, I'm in my feelings. Well, what kind of feelings? What you in? We're going to work to identify some of that. As I said, some of us will immediately start shouting, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. Or we start singing. I call it the old Negro spiritual, when my grandmother would say, move, Satan, move on out of my way. It was upsetting, but she would just start singing, okay? So a lot of us still do that. But I'm also wanting you to learn how to sit with it. I don't know if you ever had a good cry. Some people say crying doesn't do anything, but sometimes when you have a good cry, you feel better. You release it and you feel better. So we're going to talk about that. Sometimes if you just make some noise, some people yell. I seem to do a lot of huffing and puffing. I'll go around and and once again, my spouse will be, why are you huffing and puffing? I'm like, no talking, no talking. We're not talking. We're not talking. All right, so moving on, I want you to know the 3 most common mental health diagnoses. The 3 most common: depression, anxiety disorders, post-traumatic stress disorders. These conditions make up 30% of all mental health issues. I know when you think mental health, people like to think about schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, what I call severe and persistent mental health issues. You think about some of the people you see maybe pushing a shopping cart in Moore Square and talking to the trees. Those are small and minute. The percentages are not that great. But these depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress. Let me just tell you a little bit about the symptoms of depression, because people have a lot of myths. They think, oh, depressed people are in the house with the covers pulled over their head. And I'm like, no, they go to work every day, teach school, practice law, physicians, firefighters. Some of the symptoms are sadness, tearfulness, emptiness, or hopeless. I call it apathy. Maybe they're not crying, maybe they're not tearful, but just kind of, whatever. Take it or leave it, okay? Apathy. Sometimes anger. As a black woman, I feel like sometimes we get a bad rep about being angry black women. Usually, if I talk to someone who has been labeled angry, it only takes 2 minutes before the tears start to flow, because it looks like anger, but it's really sadness turned inward. It's really, so the tearfulness, irritability, frustration, even over small things. Why does this person just bothers me? Loss of interest and pleasure in normal things that you used to enjoy, fishing, cutting your grass, baking cakes. Now you're just like, whatever, no interest in doing it. Sleep disturbances, can't sleep, can't fall asleep, or just sleeping for hours and never feeling rested. You got 8-10 hours, but you wake up and just want to go back to sleep. I talked to so many people today. Well, I'm going to say, 50% of the people I talked to today was just depression, and they range from a 24-year-old young woman who said, Dr. Moore, I went to Triangle Springs because I couldn't stop crying. It's been 3 days and I haven't been able to stop crying. And I just feel like nobody cares. Nobody cares. And I don't want to die, but I'm just so tired of nobody caring. And I said, well, I know your mother is, I don't want to worry my mama. I don't want to worry my mama. So got her situated in intensive outpatient so she can increase it. And then another, just a 69 who had been working and now she's not working, retired. Adult children have all left. I said, what you gonna do for Thanksgiving next week? Well, Dr. Moore, I might just drive through Golden Corral and get me a plate and come on back home. And I'm like, I know well, I don't want to worry anybody and invite myself somewhere, For men, a lot of times it looks different. I find more irritability, more frustration. I tend to see in the men. But the reason why you don't want to ignore these signs of depression is because it leads to dark thoughts. You don't have to have a plan, a pile of pills or a gun. It's just the thought of, if I don't wake up tomorrow, so be it. And just this semester, NC State has had 5 suicides this semester. And they've had to have 3 mental health days where they just stop classes. It's a crisis going on right now, especially with young folks. So the depression symptoms I want you all to be familiar with. And we'll talk about how that it makes whatever's going on with you health-wise even worse. Now, anxiety is probably the most common. Anxiety, I call them worry warts, people who are always, there's something called generalized anxiety, means you're just a worrier. You just a worrier. What about this and how about that? And when we going to do this and what about this? And if I do this, then this. And then what about this? There are lots of different types of anxiety. Some people have panic, where they wake up in the middle of the night, their heart racing, and they're like, what in the world? They go to the ER thinking they're having a heart attack, and it's anxiety. Social anxiety. Some people, I talk to so many people with social anxiety. They're the folks you see in Walmart at 1 o'clock in the morning because they don't want to go in when they got people. They turn down all invitations to social events, always got an excuse. They just have a feeling that everybody's looking at them everybody's talking about them, and they just don't want to be bothered. So they hide out. OCD, there, oh my goodness, that one is a big one. Some people just have to, if they don't do it in a certain exact way, causes a lot of anguish, okay? For everything from, I was talking to someone today, and she was mad because her mother came to help, and mother started cleaning the kitchen and put her cups in the wrong cabinet. And also moved the forks. And Dr. Moore, she just did that. And I'm like, but your mama was trying to help you. But she couldn't see it. She couldn't see it. I have another gentleman that I talked to today. He washes his hand at least 50 times a day because the idea of his hands having germs. And he works on computers. He's an IT guy. So how many computers his hands are raw from washing them, okay? All of it is anxiety. Anxiety tries to take control of your head, and it wants you to live in fear. Live in fear, okay? You're not doing it on purpose. It's your brain. It's a lot going on up there, and it's not just you're doing it on purpose. So those are just some of the types of anxieties. PTSD, we used to think about post-traumatic stress with the military. I used to work at the VA hospital in Chicago, and I saw a lot of Vietnam veterans that, they used to call it shell shock back in the day. They would come home and hear a loud noise. They got all kind of rules. They don't want their back to the door. It's basically what we know now. It's not just the military. Anytime you have a vivid flashback of something that was traumatic in your life, if you experience something traumatic and you might smell something, see something, and it triggers in you that it takes you back to that place. Intrusive thoughts, where it's just, you're out minding your business and these thoughts come in your head. Nightmares, intense distress, physical sensations, pain, sweating, trembling, nausea. So this is mind, body. So just wanted you to know that these three conditions, depression, anxiety, and PTSD, are the most common. And so they might not be what you think, but people go to work with these conditions every day, okay? Now, let's talk about health disparities. I just picked a couple of them in terms of, I say in our community, but I'm thinking about any community of color, African-American community, their health disparities. If you look at something like heart disease, it's the #1 killer in the United States. It's the #1 killer. The rate of heart disease is decreasing among non-people of color, but not among African Americans. And between the ages of 18 and 49, heart disease kill 2 times more likely to die. African Americans between the ages of 18 and 49 are twice as likely to die from a heart attack than any other group of Americans. So heart disease, when I talk about what's ailing your heart, it's not just the cardio, the blood flow, but the heaviness, whatever pain you're holding on to. It's in your heart. It is in your heart, and we try to reason our way out of it, but it's in your heart. And trust me, it will affect your heart disease, your cardiovascular health. It will hurt it. The next thing is diabetes, or what my grandma used to call that sugar. I got a little touch of sugar, and we are twice as likely to be diagnosed with diabetes, and we're more likely to suffer complications from diabetes, such as end-stage renal disease and amputations. And if you've ever known, again, a great example of mind-body connection, if your grandmother or older relative, sugar was dropping, tell me you noticed something. You start running to get that orange juice and that peppermint, because sweet little grandma could turn into a Tasmanian devil. If that blood sugar dropped, everybody, quick, get some orange juice, get a peppermint, quick, because she could just go to a whole nother level when that blood sugar drops. So diabetes is a major factor as well. And then hypertension, high blood pressure. Of course, high blood pressure is this is the statistics, 1 in 3 African Americans have high blood pressure. And we are twice as likely to not have it under control, okay? And we're also diagnosed at a much younger age with high blood pressure. Besides, us being blamed for a poor diet, maybe salt, fried foods, what do y'all think high blood pressure, what causes your blood pressure to rise? How many of you walk into the doctor's office and if they take your blood pressure right away, you might have to ask them to do it again at the end because they call it the white coat syndrome. Just from walking in there, you're already nervous and your blood pressure is likely to be elevated. But at the end, once you've talked to the doctor and they said everything's okay, can you check my blood pressure again? Let's see what's happening there. So blood pressure is also, and when I think about mortality, and African American men in particular have the lowest, or I want to say the shortest lifespan of all other groups. If you think about white, Asian, Latino, Native American, and women, African American men have the shortest lifespan. And I personally believe and theorize it's related to hypertension, heart disease, and stress. And we go around pretending like it's not there. It's not there. I tell, my spouse works in corporate America. He works for Cisco. He's been there, he's in upper management or whatever, and he's one of the only ones. And I tell him all the time, Cisco gonna try to take you out, and you're gonna miss everything. You're gonna miss everything. But it's a silent thing, and we don't see it. So you have to be intentional about paying attention to your stress so that it doesn't take you out. We don't think about this as a health issue, but caregiving. If you are a caregiver, I have my 85, she'll be 86 next month, but we moved her up from Louisiana to live with us. She has stage 4 Alzheimer's, retired teacher, 35 years. I love her to death. And we brought her up here. We got caregivers. We're very blessed. But even in getting here tonight, the caregiver usually leaves at 8 o'clock tonight. So had to come up with some, other arrangements to make sure that that's covered. But caregiving, there was a study by Blue Cross Blue Shield in 2018 that found that caregivers had 26% greater chance of having physical and behavioral health problems, 64% more likely to have hypertension, and 57% experiencing anxiety and depression. Doesn't mean you don't love your people, doesn't mean you don't care about them, but it's a lot. Caregiving is a lot. It is a lot. And I think that some of us don't even like to talk about it because we don't want to feel like, oh, well, we don't want nobody to think we don't care about our people and we don't care about them. They cared for us, so we got to care for them. But it is stressful. And saying that it's stressful is just telling the truth. And the bottom line is, whatever it is that is troubling you, let me just say this, it's better out than in. It's better out than in. And to say it doesn't mean the volcano is going to erupt or the world's going to shake. If you say, caring for my elder parent is very stressful, doesn't mean you don't care about them, doesn't mean you don't love them. That's just the fact. And for women in particular, between the ages of 35 and 55, are the most stressed out because they're actively parenting, kids in school or college, and now they have aging parents, and they're just being stretched. And they go to work, and they're being stretched out, okay? So understand that with heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, caregiving, the 3 conditions we talked about, depression, anxiety, and those put together can be lethal, can really shorten your life, okay? So I wanted to go over some of the This is cold and flu seasons, but some of the other conditions that you might experience when the mind and the body connects and you're like, what is going on? Back pain, change in appetite, chest pain, constipation, diarrhea. This is brain one up here. Your gut is brain two. Whatever you feel up here, the next place you're going to feel it is in your gut. So IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux, direct correlation with stress, okay? Dry mouth, extreme tiredness, fatigue, general aches and pains, headaches, trouble sleeping, stomach, weight gain, weight loss. All of those conditions, those physical conditions, are tied to mental health, okay? Why does my doctor need to know about my emotions? A lot of times you'll go to your GP or your primary care, and you don't even think to tell your doctor that you've been feeling down or you've been feeling kind of sad. She may not be able to tell just by looking at you. And there was a recent study about pediatricians, how 50 years ago they just did well baby checks and vaccinations. Now almost 50% of their visits are mental health. Kids with ADHD, anxiety, can't sleep, autism spectrum. These pediatricians are having to go back and get additional training for mental health conditions. Your primary care doctor is a great place to start. If you can't find a psychologist or someone like myself, start with your primary care. And they don't have to, you don't, quickly put you on any kind of medicine. A lot of times people will go to their primary care and they'll say, oh, I just had a death in the family and I'm sad. And the doctor tries to give them maybe some Prozac or Lexapro. And you're like, well, no. It's normal for me to be sad. I just lost someone. But if it continues, 6 months later and you're still having trouble, you might want to consider it. But it's important to talk to your doctor. They can't always tell when you're stressed, anxious, or upset. Be honest. If you go to the doctor and you don't tell the truth about what's hurting you, you're wasting your copay and your money. Don't go in there. I feel fine, doc. Well, why are you here giving me this $40 copay? You need to be honest and tell them what's going on. Make sure that other health problems aren't causing your symptoms. Whenever I meet someone who tells me they've been feeling anxious or depressed, I will say, have you checked your thyroid? Because that little thyroid, it can make you hyper, make you lose your hair, make you nervous. If it's underactive, it makes you gain weight, makes you depressed. There are medical reasons sometimes for feeling some type of way, okay? It's not just a weakness. It has nothing to do with your intelligence, your moral character. You can love God. You can do all this work in the church and still have some underlying conditions that affect your mental health. And the doctor may also address sometimes even medications that you're on. If you're on a medication for, I don't know, you're on something for blood pressure or diabetes that could affect your mood, they could adjust it. So be honest and talk to your doctor about it. I wanted to highlight this. We are undergoing right now what I call a silent pandemic. We know about COVID coming up on 3 years. Last week, November 5th or November 6th, they put out the numbers. 6.8 million people, 6.8 million COVID deaths across the world. A little over a million COVID deaths in the United States. 1 million deaths, COVID deaths. What we know in the literature is that for every one death, there are 5 people grieving deeply. And what I mean by that, and I'm not just talking about having a service and everybody come and pay their respects and bring their food to the repast and everything, then they're gone. But there are 5 people of that one person that died that is still grieving deeply. They've lost their mother, they lost their spouse, they lost a child. They lost someone that they loved, and they're still grieving deeply. Everybody's gone on, the food, the repast. They've taken all the business, I call it the business of dying, the policies and this and that. All that's taken care of, and now they're like, how am I supposed to continue on without my loved one? Okay, so grief is a pandemic right now. It's not just deaths, but the kids who lost the 2 years, the virtual school. We just saw this week test scores lower than they have been they said 20 to 25 years. The kids are almost 2-year reading level below. So they've suffered. The kids who did not have a graduation for high school, they never went to prom, they didn't go to college graduation. People have lost jobs, lost houses. So many seniors, because I'm a Medicare provider, so many people, that loneliness and isolation during COVID, now they're in facilities. They're in assisted care facilities. Grief fuels the question, why? If you're grieving, what is constantly going on in your head is why? Why did my loved one have to go? Why did this have to happen? That why, our brain is seeking why because it believes that if we knew why, maybe our grief wouldn't be as bad. But we're not going to get a why. And this is where our faith comes in. This is where that surrender comes in. When you say, okay, I'm not going to have a clear understanding of why, but I got to surrender and release it to God and say, Lord, I know that you know why, and you've equipped me to deal with whatever I have to deal with. So I got to lean in on that. But the constant why. I see so many people that are grieving. Today I was talking to a young lady, she's 35, and she said, Dr. Moore, COVID took 3 years away from my fertility possibilities. She said, I didn't have a mate, and I was on a mission at 32. I just knew I had to find somebody, get married, and have me a baby, and now I'm 35, and I might not ever have a baby. COVID, I was like, she's right. COVID took 3 years of her. We're not socializing anymore. And if you're not on a dating app, you can't find anybody, That is a big stressor for a lot of folks. So I just want you all, if you're feeling some type of way, the other thing about powerlessness, think about something that you don't have any power over. And not to be political, but, a certain person announced they're running for president again yesterday, and we're powerless over what happens in the world. But I tell you this about powerless. If you sit with whatever you feel powerless for 15 seconds, it's going to make you sad. Powerlessness is equals sadness. If you got a drug-addicted loved one or someone who's struggling with alcohol or criminal activity, and you talk to them till you're blue in the face, but they're not hearing you. You sound like Charlie Brown's teacher, womp, 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 and you feel powerless. If you sit with that powerless for 15 seconds, you're going to feel really sad, okay? So I wanted to just really bring up the grief aspect, because people can grieve themselves to death. Okay, I've seen it. A year or two later, how I'm supposed to live without my mother, without my husband. All right, so this is what I'm going to give you all. If I can get some help in passing this out. I mentioned that this is the last thing that I want to do, is before we end, I want to give you all some vocabulary words so that we can, so we won't have to say, I'm feeling some type of way. I've got a list here. It's called the feelings list. And there are 2 sides with positive feelings and the other 2 rows of negative feelings. And I want you all just to take a look at those negative feelings. Look at all those negative feelings: afraid, angry. Those are different ways to express negative emotions. We only say mad or sad, But if you think about it, I was talking to someone the other day, and she kept saying how she kept using the word angry and I'm just angry. And she said some other stuff about a relative. She has a new baby, and she had some COVID protocol in the house. She wanted people to be tested before they came to see the baby. And, she just kept saying angry. I'm just so angry because these people, my baby is 7 months and they still haven't seen him because they're just da, 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 da. So I said, well, let's look at the list. Is it angry or is it something else? And so she looked at the list and she said, you know what, Dr. Moore? Maybe it's not angry. Maybe it's confused and disappointed. And I said, well, you know what? Confused and disappointed is very different from anger and hostility. Confused and disappointed kind of cracks the door. If you talk to somebody and you say, I'm really confused by why you're upset, or I'm disappointed because I thought, was thinking more about it than that. But if you think about it, sometimes you might say you're mad or you're angry. But if you look at these words, these negative words, you might say, well, maybe I'm not mad. Maybe I'm just feeling misunderstood. Maybe I'm feeling a little disgusted. Maybe I'm embarrassed, fearful, troubled. On the other side is the positive. If I tell you to think about something that really made you smile in the past week, something that made you happy, what you could choose a word. When I see that little fella in the back, excuse me, Kevin, can you stand up for a second? Can you stand up? See, when I see this little boy right here, his name is King Cub Kevin, and he is my grandson. And when I see, you're not a king right now? What are you right now? Just regular Kevin. I have to ask him each day if he's a king, sometimes he's a superhero, but right now he's just regular Kevin, right? Okay, at his house he's a superhero. But when I see him, okay, all right, but when I see these words, these positive words, and I see him, I just feel, ooh, what do I feel when I see Kevin? I see just, oh my goodness, joyful and just loving. Is that on there? Yes, that's what I feel. So I want you all to have this. Put it on your refrigerator. Put it in take a picture and keep it in your phone. So when you are feeling some type of way, you say, well, let me take a minute and see what I'm really feeling. Because if you can voice it and put a word to it, it's going to help you to feel less crazy. Because crazy making is when you're sitting around saying, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why can't I get myself together? Oh, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? But if you pull out this list and you're able to pick out some words, it's going to help you to make sense of it all. And you're going to say, oh, okay, I see what's going on. All right, okay. All right, I see I'm just feeling impatient right now. I'm feeling irritated and impatient. Use these words, because this is something that we were just taught to go sit down somewhere and fix your face, and I'm gonna give you something to cry about. But these words can really help to validate, and that's all sometimes all you need to do is just to say how you're feeling. It'll take down so much confusion and so much conflict resolution. If you could just we tell the kids like Kevin and my other granddaughter, we say, use your words, don't fight, don't kick, don't fall on the floor. Say, Mommy, I want juice. Don't use your words. But with each year we become older, we don't use our words anymore. We don't use our words, especially I always say in our community, we got a whole nonverbal communication. We can give somebody what they call a mean mug, and you just start running. Parents had a look back in the day in church. They'd look at you. You knew you better straighten up. I used to try to look at my kids. They'd be like, Mom, what's wrong with your face? What's wrong with your face? So I know this was a lot of information. I hope that what you take with you tonight is, again, please share this with the people in your circle, in your village. Next week at the Thanksgiving table, share this. Say, y'all, we got to start talking, because hold it. Whatever it is that's troubling you, just remember it's better out than in. It's better out than in. If you need to write it down, write a letter. I can't tell you how many times I've had people write letters to folks who have passed on. Why are you still mad at Mama? She's been gone 20 years. Let's write a letter and get it out so that you can be okay and lower your blood pressure. Okay, so we got about 8 minutes or so for questions, and I welcome any questions, comments. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
What it made me remember was when they had the faces.
Yep.
And you know, you pick which one you were feeling, and so forth. So that's what I instantly thought about.
That's right.
And when you had the list with the depression and anxiety
Yes.
and the PTSD.
Yes.
I was at one point where I thought everything was fine with my mom and I.
Yes.
And which it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But stuff came back up,
Yes.
which she herself thought was fine. And it was like at that point, with me dealing with that, is when I knew I needed to go see someone.
Yeah.
And I really found my counselor or therapist, it was so helpful to me that even when everything ended,
Yeah.
it was like I didn't want to stop.
Yeah.
I didn't want to stop because it was so good and it really
That's so
helped me.
good.
And the last time you was here, I'm such in a better place.
I'm glad to hear that. Praise
And so I
God.
just thank you so
Oh,
much.
you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. I hope we can just break whatever stigma there is about, you wouldn't feel bad. You say, oh, I'm such a horrible person. My blood sugar high. I don't know why I'm so weak. I got high blood pressure. You wouldn't say that if you said, gosh, I'm just feeling sad. Because I think what's going on too with this grief pandemic is we're being told, go back out there, get out there, go out there. And people are like, wait, I'm still sad because we never had a funeral for my dad in 2020. I never got to graduate from I was talking to a dad today. His daughter's a freshman at East Carolina. And he said, oh, Dr. Moore, she's struggling. I don't know if I need to just roll up to Greenville and pick her up. He said, but you know what? I was thinking she only had 2 years of high school. He said when she was in the 10th grade, school stopped in March. She didn't go back in person her junior year, and then she went her senior. So I said, yeah, we kind of need all them 4 years to kind of get ourselves prepared. It's not just academic, it's social and emotional. So I think that's what we're seeing at NC State and what we saw at UVA and those. It just breaks my heart to see those players, those football players at UVA and 4 college students in Idaho or Iowa, one of the. And then, but it's our small children too, our kids that are now 4th graders and they miss 2nd and 3rd grade, crucial years. And we have to be, some parents are going to be mindful of the 2 years. They're going to get some extra tutoring, but other parents are going to be like, you better, just not take into consideration what they've been through. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Sister Moore.
Yes.
I just wanted to say so many things that you said I can relate to, because it's like every time I go to my doctor office, them white coats, my blood pressure goes sky high, and they have to end up taking it twice every time, so I can relate to that.
Yes.
And then yesterday I was looking through some papers at my house, and I found a letter that my husband had wrote me. My husband been deceased since 2002. And I sat there and read that letter, and I just boo-hoo cried. I could not
Yes.
stop them tears from flowing.
Yes.
I didn't know where they was coming from, but it was just so touching.
Yes.
Just to go
Yes.
back and read
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
He's been gone for so long, and it was just like, he was just there talking to me, and that's who he was. So
Yes,
it
that's
was
beautiful.
really an emotional time.
But it's
couldn't-
beautiful. And that's the thing about grief. We like to think, grief, there's no certain time. any anniversaries, birthdays, holidays, sometimes you smell something and you see something. And I remember last year my best friend was making a turkey and just crying. I'm like, girl, you crying all up in the turkey and just the tears falling on the turkey. But she was thinking about her mother-in-law who had passed the year before, and her mother-in-law always did the turkey. And I want to say this too about this disease. We talk dementia and Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is a form of dementia, okay? We use the words interchangeably, but dementia is the general category. Not everybody with dementia has Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is like you lose your words and your understanding and everything. But I always say I'm so close to my mother-in-law because I met her when I was probably 16. I think I was 16 years old. And her sister-in-law, her sister who's 88 said, Lucille always knew you were going to take care of her. That's why I said, is that why she loved me so much? But I was sitting with her on Saturday when the caregiver left. She said, she's not eating. She doesn't want to eat. She doesn't want to eat. And so I went in there. I said, you know what? Mother loves peanut butter and jelly. I'm going to make her peanut butter and some grape jelly. And she also liked those soft Cheetos. So I said, I'm going to put her some Cheetos. And she said, no, she didn't eat no breakfast. She didn't want to eat. So I sat right beside her, and she was looking at me. She didn't saying too much. And she looked, and she smiled, and then she picked up a Cheeto. And she used to like a straw, but now I picked the glass up, and I put it to her mouth, and she started drinking. And she took a bite of that peanut butter and jelly, and I'm sitting there, and the tears were just flowing, and my husband comes in, that's my mama, you always, I'm like, you act like, I said, what are you crying for, Tammie? I said, oh, mother's eating her peanut butter and jelly, But it just warmed my heart so much, and it's this disease, that Alzheimer's, if you've been around it, it's, to see your loved one fade away like that. But it took her 2 hours, but she ate that peanut butter and jelly and drank her water chips. And I was just full, But those are the things that caregiving, again, we're watching it and we're experiencing it. But it's got to tap into what you feel, and it's okay. It's okay. Any other questions or comments? Yes? Oh, you want your list of words. Okay. Good. You got it? Okay, good. Use that list. There's a lot of good words on there. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
And that kind of thing. And you have people in your corner to say, pretty much make you feel you got to keep going so it doesn't stop.
Yes.
So when COVID started, that was probably the first time in my life I had a chance to just be still.
Yes.
And I felt so many things that I had not been able to feel prior to.
Mm-hmm.
So any trauma that happened, all of a sudden, it's like a whirlwind of emotions. And
Yes.
now I got to actually deal with it, and I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And so in that time, though, is when I made up my mind that when I'm not okay, it's okay to be okay.
That's right.
And everybody's not going to understand that.
That's right.
It also helped me to be able to draw boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So for everything that's going on, like there have been times I shut down social media for 6 months because I just can't handle it. I feel everything, right?
Yes.
And even to the Headingham shooting, we had
Yes.
something that Sunday morning. I couldn't do it. I was already too full. I knew people in that neighborhood and people in that neighborhood who were grieving, and it was just too much for me. And so, there's still a lot of things that I have to deal with, but I would say COVID was probably the door that kind of opened up probably any and everything I felt times 20.
Yep.
And so I did start doing therapy, and I am on anxiety medicine for that reason. But I'm thankful for him because I love Jesus and I love this medicine. It keeps me
Yes,
safe.
thank you.
God, it keeps me on the same path. So I enjoy being able to say I'm just not okay.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Because I'm like, listen, I love Jesus too. And I believe in therapy, and I believe in trying to get people to understand that, again, it doesn't have anything to do with your intelligence. If your doctor said you have hypertension, I don't want you to eat any fried chicken, get rid of the salt, and I need you to walk 30 minutes, okay? I'm going to tell you, if you come to see me, listen, I need you to practice gratitude. I'm going to give you an app to put on your phone. It's called the gratitude jar. And every day, I need you to put something you're grateful for in that jar. Number two, I need you to practice breathing. I need you to breathe throughout the day. And number three, I want you to, what they call meditate, I call it prayer. But anyway, when you say meditate, in psychology, we say we want you to meditate and breathe and, but for me, meditation and for me is prayer. It's just you talking to God. That's meditation. God knows. How you going to hide your sadness from God? Come on now. He knows your heart is hurting. He knows you're grieving. He knows you're sad. So just go on and just put it out there. You'll feel better.
Well, I just want to share a story. A couple of weeks ago, I went to a high school reunion, and I had a chance to speak with one of my classmates. She had a husband that died. I had a wife that died, and we was kind of sharing our stories, and she was telling me that she thinks about him all the time, and it's been like maybe 12 years since he's been deceased. And I was telling her about my wife. She's been deceased about 9-10 years as well, and I was telling her there's not a day that goes by that I don't have some type of thought about her. Yeah. And she was telling me, she said, "Well, how was the same with me?" She said, "It's so bad that they have a son." And she said, "My son looks just like him, and it's just hard for me to even look at my son because he looks so much like my husband." And she was saying, people say, "Oh, you need to go on and get over that." She said, but it's hard. And I said, "Well, you shouldn't have to." Mm-hmm. I said, a lot of times when people tell you that, they've never lost anybody.
That's right.
And so you take as much time to grieve as you want to, Mm-hmm. So I was glad that I had that conversation with her. I hope I helped her.
Yeah.
Because it definitely helped me.
Absolutely.
To speak with her like that.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. The thing about grief, too, sometimes it could be the time of the year. I used to have some of my older clients, and they say, "I feel this old cloud, Dr. Moore. I feel this heavy cloud coming." And we look at the calendar, and it's October. That's when my Charlie died 30 years ago in October. Every October, I get this feeling. It's like the body remembered that grief. So anniversaries, holidays, all of that can trigger grief. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Have a question? Do you have a question, Cub? What's your question? My house? Yeah, my house is a castle. Yeah, it is. All right. Thank y'all so much for the time, and we'll see you next time. Okay?
God bless Tammie.
God bless Tammie, my Lord. God bless Tammie. God bless Tammie, my Lord. God bless Tammie. God bless Tammie, my Lord. God bless Tammie. Oh, Lord. God bless Tammie.
Father, we're back. We knew you would open your servant, Tammie Moore, and we knew you would open us. And we'll never forget tonight. And we will never not share with others that during this time of turmoil in our country, this time of great joy in our country, in this time of in our churches and in our homes and within ourselves, both the joy and the turmoil are ever before us. And we're constantly reminded that Jesus never promised us that we wouldn't have them, but that he would take us through them. And tonight is a part of him taking us through. God, we just want to thank you. We want to be less as you become greater. Bless our families. Bless those who love us in their own way that we don't understand. And those that we love them in our own way and they don't understand. And just keep us all in Christ Jesus' name. And amen. It's been again I'm just thankful, Dr. Tammie Moore. So, did that not confirm that that is a ministry? Yeah, healing is a ministry, and the church doesn't have a monopoly on ministry and healing. And long before the church was formed, Jesus was. So that's who our conquering King is, and who changes and transforms our hearts and our minds. I really want to thank each of you for being here tonight. I never get tired of seeing you. I never get tired of being in your presence. You matter in more ways than one. And wherever I go, I carry you in my heart and I carry you in my mind. And I see even greater things happening. And it's just not slowing down. It's just blossoming in it. And it's becoming more and more and more of a church that reaches out into the community while healing each other. And it's just powerful. And sometimes we look back and we will say, about the older members, but there's some who've been here not as long, but I'm just older and I grew up with them in the Lord. So that's why I referenced them, but I'll actually have to do better. What Dr. Moore said about how people are still grieving, some of our families have had big losses this year, and their grief is deep. And no matter what they look like, and sometimes we need to just slow down and think about that. And, but anyway, she's already said all of that. But I'm so thankful that you're here tonight. And if the God we serve allows us to assemble again on Sunday, we're going to continue to bring a word of hope, a word of encouragement, and continue to be. But in the meantime, we've got to live. Look, dance, eat, forgive, pray, and repeat that, and do what you need to do. If you're very, very religious and don't want anybody to see you dance, when you get to yourself, dance to the music. Emma wasn't here today working on the bulletin board. You can't go home without looking on the bulletin board. And I was playing Stevie Wonder's Love in Need of Love. I said if I was a part of a congregation that I started from scratch, we'd play music like that. Yes, there's so much more to life. But anyhow, Brother W, you're talking too much. Let us stand, beloved. Get right, church, and let's go home. Get right, and let's go home. Get right, you better get right, church. Get right, church, and let's go home. Herb, if you dismiss us.